Welcome back to On Texas Football. We'll call this the post-game show. It's an 11 o'clock win, so Saturday night we're going live here at On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by lifetime Longhorn Marcus Mars. Marcus, a special edition of the game today for Marcus. We'll get to that in just a minute. Taking your questions here for a little bit. Super Chats, as always, jump to the front of the line. Marcus, we'll start. I want to start off. You and I were talking about this right before we came on air. Special recognition. The 2005 national championship team was recognized today during the 34-31 win for Texas over Vanderbilt. But you were saying, and we were talking during the watch with us, how this was going to go. It was supposed to be during the first time out, but Texas scored right out of the gate, so it might have thrown things off. But nonetheless, it's really good. Every Longhorn fan loves that team, so probably pretty good for you. As you were saying, maybe seen some guys you haven't seen in a while today.
Yeah, man. Actually, hold on. Let me make sure I step into this the same way I went on the field today.
There we go.
Yeah, man. It was really great, man. I got to see Marco Martin. Hadn't seen him in forever. Just got to see a ton of guys that you don't usually get to see because just life. Everybody has families and stuff and are spread around, but it was a lot of excitement in there. And yeah, man, they were supposed to be right after the first time out, which we're thinking, okay, you get a drive or so in, but he scored so quick it kind of switched things up. So but a lot of good energy. Had a great time talking to Coach Brown and Miss Sally. A lot of our coaches came back, Coach Davis, Coach Chambers. So it was really cool, man. It was a really good time.
Marcus, I'll just mention him real quick because you brought him up. That class of 2002, people forget about Marco Martin. Before he had from Mesquite in a state championship game against San Antonio, Taft suffered a really bad injury.
Yep.
Had he not been hurt, we may be talking about a guy that was a 10-year pro.
Absolutely. Just complete freak of nature. People forget, to your point. They used to hand him the ball and he was pulling off from guys. Like he was the real deal. And so it was great to catch up with him. My old roommate, Matt Melton, A. Ross was back, Cedric Griffin, a ton of guys were around, and it was cool. It was really good to see.
Marcus, let's get into the game, and there's a couple different ways we can attack it, but I want to start with this. CJ and I did the quick reacts. The grade show is in the can for tomorrow, and I've started it off the same way. I'll start this off the same way. That was probably the best game we've seen Arch Manning play in a Texas uniform just because of the sampling of throws he had to make throughout the day, completing the ball all over the field. 10 different guys caught a pass today. Yep. However you slice it, Marcus, that was probably the best we've seen Arch. Absolutely,
man. I mean, he came to play, right? And I think that was something we talked about throughout the week. There was a handful of people, sometimes when we were talking through some of these things, saying in the chat, wouldn't it be good to have Caldwell in? And I was like, well, I guess we're forgetting what Arch did, in that fourth quarter to get us to overtime. And so, right. Excuse me, I just was really looking forward to seeing him be able to build on that once it was, we found out that he was cleared, and he did exactly that. I mean, the guy was nails out there today. He did a good job of protecting himself. He did a good job of protecting the ball. And like you said, Jeff, he was spreading it around the field, even when, some of his guys started kind of going down and, later in the game. I mean, he was using some guys that he didn't as frequently, throughout the year to this point. So I think it was a really good building block, and that O-line, man, like they really showed up. We saw a little bit of movement along the O-line, and it was great to get, Hudson back. So I was really impressed with the offense's performance. And, now they get a week to kind of go back to work, heal up a little bit before they play Georgia.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. David Parcell mentions it here, said Arch has unbelievable pocket presence. Marcus, there was a play, I think it was in the third quarter, where, pocket collapses. It's an all-out blitz. Arch steps up and delivers a throw. And at first I'm thinking, man, that ball was overthrown. I didn't realize that off the line, Emmett Mosley had gotten bear hugged by the corner. If not, that's probably a touchdown. But yeah, one tackle for loss today allowed by this offensive line. You mentioned them, Marcus. That's the other way I want to go when we talk about really positive. Like Texas dominated the line of scrimmage against a Vanderbilt program under Clark Lee that prides itself on being a line of scrimmage, physical, methodical football team. Not only does the offensive line not give up a sack, only one tackle for loss, the Texas defensive line, 6 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. Vandy had only allowed 7 sacks all year coming into this game. Diego Pavia gets sacked 6 times. I don't want that, Marcus, to get lost in the sauce of the last 4 minutes and
Right.
that near catastrophic end, because from start to finish, Texas dominated the line of scrimmage in this game.
Absolutely. It was one of those, it's cliche, but it was one of those, like, the scoreboard didn't really tell the game, right? And it's funny, yesterday at the co-op, we were kind of giving some predictions or something that, we thought would happen. And Jerry said that Colin was going to get 3 sacks. And when he said it, Rod turned to him, he said the same thing. He was like, really, man? They've only given up 6 or 7, the whole year. And I was like, well, maybe they, go ahead and double it up. And, sure enough, I mean, Colin didn't get the 3, but he did enough. And, if it weren't for, let's say, the Zebras allowing an offensive lineman to tackle a guy, you probably have another tackle for a loss instead of a long touchdown. So I thought the guys really came to play, man. And it was really impressive to see. They took some pride about their work. And certainly you want to shore up that stuff, there at the end. But you absolutely can't lose sight of what you said there, Jeff. And, again, like I said, the O-line, man, like, for all the crap we've given them this year, and at times deservingly so, when, it was time for them to really knuckle up and play against a top 10 opponent again, they answered the bell. So hats off to those guys.
100%. Because look, I still think, and I'm not alone in this line of thinking, Nick Brooks is going to be a really good player by the time he leaves Texas. And Connor Stroh, when he's been in, has given you everything he's got. But right now, for this team, the best combination is probably Connor Robertson at center with Cole Hudson at left guard. There's a couple things to that, Marcus. One, it felt like Sark called a game where he's not asking that group to do things that they've proven not to be capable of doing. But at the same time, whether it's their pin pull stuff, their zone run game, Hudson just gives you that foot quickness that you don't have with Brooks or Stroh. It just changed things up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it's just – it's what you have different complementary pieces for, to be able to kind of move them around as needed. And, as we're trying to kind of figure some things out and shore, some spots up on the offensive line, it's great to have somebody that's so versatile as him. His dad stopped by the table when we were in there in the co-op yesterday, and, just great family, but, a really solid player, man, and just came out there and did what needed to be done. So it was a really impressive performance. And I agree with you, man. Nick Brooks will be fine in the long run, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, a lot of people forget, yes, he struggled a little bit, but he also, did some things that took him off the field for a little bit earlier in the season. So, I mean, he's just kind of getting geared up, and he'll be somebody that we'll, have to count on in the future, years, and maybe even future games this season. But I think right now, this lineup that they're working with is they're cooking with something right now. And I think, having this week, off coming up will give them some opportunity to go back, clean a few more things up, and gel even more.
It's funny. We were talking during the tailgate show this morning. Myself and Jerry and Bobby were on the tailgate show, and Jerry was talking about running back rushing yards. He said, man, if the running backs can combine to give you like around 90 yards, you should be good. You look up at the end of the game, Marcus, Wisner and Baxter combined for 97 on 25 carries. I mean, they weren't hitting home runs. It wasn't, there were some tough yards earned, but man, the running, it was good enough. It was as good as it needed to be. This run game is not going to just suddenly be prolific and just start cranking out 150, 200-yard performances. But on a day like today, if that run game can help you get into manageable third downs and even convert some of those manageable third downs, that's what you need. You just need efficiency when you got to have it.
Yeah, and look, we're not talking about some just dominating rushing performance, right? But it was what was needed at the time, right? And I think the plays were timely. That has been my issue with some of the play calling, is not the plays themselves, the timing in which some of them were called. And I didn't really have any of those like kind of WTF moments today where I'm trying to figure out, why are we doing this here as opposed to just running it in this instance. And so I was really happy with what took place there. I talked a little bit earlier in the week that both CJ and Trey, like, they kind of feed off of each other. They really enjoy playing with one another. You were there, but I could tell, from some of the player availability on Monday, like, they were sitting there watching each other, when it was their turn to talk, and like they had an excitement about them. And there's no egos with either of them. There's no selfishness with either of them. And that's what you need. And that's the type of leadership that young guys can feed off of. They can see that, hey, this guy isn't getting the ball 20 times a game, but he's playing a role. He's serving it well. He's being assignment sound. And, so it's I think something that you can continue to build on, man. Like, that's all I got, repeatedly. It'll probably just be, you can build on everything that we saw there. And then there'll be plenty that they can look on film to clean up, right? It wasn't perfect, got a little a little spooky there in the end, right?
Very spooky.
But in the end, we figured it out, found a way.
I'll say this, Marcus. I am glad Texas has been through the Diego Pavia experience twice now. For the last time. 2 dubs. It doesn't matter how it happened, but at least you never have to see, unless there's some weird ruling I don't know that's coming down the pike, you never have to see Diego Pavia again. So thank goodness 2 times you survived them both.
Absolutely, man. And look, he plays with a chip on his shoulder. I know people kind of, you're going to feel one way or another about him, but I did see, after the game, I was able to kind of see some clips, of different stuff. And somebody interviewed him on the field before the game, right? And the headline that they pulled off was, something about Louis bags and all this. And, people were saying, there was another one that was, if Vanderbilt plays their game, then nobody can touch them. But if you really listen to the whole thing, they asked him a question about Arch. He was extremely complimentary about Arch. He, was very clear in the fact that Arch is young, but the sky's the limit for him. So like stuff like that, I can appreciate. He's the guy that you would love to have on your team. You hate to go against. And to your point, Jeff, thankfully, we won't have to see him again. So
no doubt.
Let him ride off into the sunset on that one.
Yeah, done with the Diego Pavia experience. Let's get to the super chat. Marcus from Justin Yarbrough said, do y'all think Derek Williams is 100%? He hasn't gotten back to the level of play he was at last season. Just win, baby. Look, yeah, we got to get the last 4 minutes at some point, and I guess we'll get there now.
Sure.
Part of that is, and I guess the staggering thing for me was it's been a long time since we've seen Marcus at Texas secondary have multiple just gross coverage busts like there were down the stretch. But this is where not only, look, you were already up against it without Michael Taft. Now you take Jelani McDonald out of there. Now you're asking Derek Williams, who hasn't played as much as you'd probably think he would play this year, coming off a major knee injury, and Xavier Filsaime, who also got banged up in this game. You're asking 2 guys to do things from a communication standpoint you've never asked them to do in game. So it wasn't great from a coverage standpoint anyway, but that just, to me, that just compounds it even more when you've got 2 guys that have never been put in that situation.
Yeah, and I mean, even to your point, Jeff, it's like the times in which we saw Derek Williams playing a lot, right? He was typically on the other side of Michael Taft or Andrew Makuba, somebody that had a whole lot of experience, and kind of the same with Jelani. So, then when you lose Jelani as well, you got some guys getting in there that just haven't had some of these live reps. And as much as you would love to say, you practice this stuff and you rank this and these guys are getting paid that, it's very different when you're actually playing the game, right? And so I think, as bad as it was and as many areas for opportunity as there, we're out there in those instances, this is also some of that experience that they're going to need later in their careers. I think they'll continue to be, players that have an opportunity to ascend. But today, it just wasn't their best showing. And, fortunately, we had gotten out in front enough to where it didn't end up fully coming to bite us. But that's the beauty of, a game like this. You found a way to win it, and now they can continue to go back, coach them hard.
If there's one thing, Marcus, that I think needs to get cleaned up that we saw it last week against Mississippi State, we see it this week. There are some coverage things that need to be tightened up, but the missed tackles, it's enough to give up an 11-yard play on 3rd and 9. But you turn a fender bender into a fatality when you miss a tackle, and then that 11-yard catch suddenly becomes a 30-yarder or a 40.
I agree. And
a lot of that is angles and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Pursuit to the ball, right? Like making sure that you're not assuming that the first guy there is making the tackle. So, it's unfortunate, and those are the things that can cost you down the road. But again, I think this is where when you win a game like this, you can certainly celebrate it, but then they can turn on that film this coming week. And coach these guys really hard. Say, hey, that's not acceptable, right? That's not our standard. And I'm sure Michael Taft was, right there coaching them up. I kind of saw him getting in the huddles and stuff. And so that'll be something that he can kind of help point out. He can help to try to correct. And, there's 2 weeks to get healthy. It'll be huge.
Yeah. I mean, look, Malik Muhammad is a really good corner. He can't be all over the field all the time. Other guys have to step up and make plays for him. Let's go ahead right now, Marcus. Let's thank our first sponsor of the evening. That's going to be our friends over at Duck Camp. Duck Camp makes gear for folks who live for being out there, whether that's at a duck blind at sunrise or on the 40 acres for a Saturday kickoff. Born right here in Austin, Duck Camp builds best-in-class hunting and fishing apparel that works just as well for a full day in the field as it does for a long day of tailgating. From sun protection shirts that keep you cool during those early season scorchers to their iconic game series hats that feel like instant classics, Duck Camp gear is ready for football season, hunting season, and every season in between. Get out there, stay out there, and hook them. Shop Duck Camp at duckcamp.com. And On Texas Football Family, use the code ONTexas25. That's ONTexas25 for 25% off of your purchase at duckcamp.com. Marcus, let's go ahead and get to some questions. Mr. 512 says, coming together at the right time. And when I saw this pop up, I thought this, Marcus, look, this team has won. If you look at how they won their SEC games, they were able to have a second half surge, a pretty convincing win over Oklahoma. They won an ugly low scoring game against Kentucky. They had to rally furiously to beat Mississippi State on the road. They had to hold off Vanderbilt. It's not pretty, but I guess if there's a good way you want to put this, it's that they've had to win these games, these must-win games. They had to win them in multiple ways. So at least you're getting calloused up a little bit the right way.
Yeah, man, like that kind of stuff, it really pays off because you're going to get, down in a game, or you're going to be up in a game, and you're going to have some experience already for both of those positions and know what it takes to close it out, right? And, I saw somebody today, I was going to war with some folks on Twitter just for the hell of it. And a guy was like, championship teams finish. And I was like, well, they finished. I mean, the game ended up with one more point, 3. As long as there's one more point on the scoreboard, we'll figure the rest out, right? And so I know as a fan, you want to see it look a particular way, and I respect that, and I agree with that. But at the end of the day, man, these guys, they caught hell for weeks for how things were looking. And to see, a bit of this turnaround, to come off, being on the road for what we said was 42 days the last time they were in DKR, and start the way they did, again, it's been a give and take, right? And I think that's one of those deals where Sarkis talked a lot about how at any given time, right, like one thing is clicking and something isn't. Well, they've been struggling to get off to fast starts, and here these last couple of weeks, first play, one of the first couple plays of the game, you're off to the races. So that's things that you can build on, and then you have opportunities to clean up on the back end as well.
The other thing to that, Marcus, we talk about championship teams. There's not a dominant team in the SEC right now. I mean, you can say A&M record-wise, but they've still got some tough games, and their toughest games down the stretch are going to be on the road. Like Georgia, you talk about Texas winning close games. Georgia should have a couple losses next to their name right now, and that team finds a way to win, sometimes with a little help from the officials, but I digress after watching that Florida game. But, Georgia's won ugly games. Alabama won an ugly game last week at South Carolina. At this point, Marcus, it almost doesn't matter how you do it.
Yeah.
All the issues we're talking about, and like you said, there are some things that they've got to get cleaned up during the bye week and get cleaned up before they go to Athens.
Yeah,
but if you'd have told me after the Florida game, hey, they'll be 7-2 after the Vanderbilt game with one SEC loss going into the bye week, yeah, I'd have taken it then, and I'll take it now.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. It's not always the prettiest, right? It's not the perfect thing you want to see out there. But it is, it's what this big boy football is about, man. Like sometimes it's not pretty. To your point, Jeff, you see people all across the country playing with their food. Miami took another loss today, right? Yep. It's not a given that just because, you have more talent than the other team by all the, composite rankings and whatever your talent score is for your, current iteration of your team. It's not a given that you're going to go out there when the ball gets lined up and win the game, So I'm not sitting here saying, hey, we should just be patting ourselves on the back and thinking that everything is, all good. Obviously, there's stuff that, has to get cleaned up. But man, they, like you said, they won the game, and there was plenty of people, right? The question was, can they win another one, right? There was people saying we're going to lose out, right? And so again, these guys hear that noise, right? They I'm sure they don't, try to like channel it a ton, and they try to block it out, but they hear that noise. And I think they played today, just like that.
Marcus, I want to get to Mr. Casp 777 says they have a hard time covering tight ends. Marcus, the linebacker position very well. And in today's football, there's two aspects of this. One, all linebackers to an extent are liabilities in coverage. That's why really good offenses find a way to attack the middle of the field. But Eli Stowers is going to play on Sundays. And Vanderbilt's got some really good tight ends. That's the beauty of having a tight end who is a matchup nightmare. He's going to be faster than most linebackers he faces. He's going to be able to out-physical most safeties he plays. And granted, Texas didn't do itself favors, but let's give a tip of the cap to maybe the best tight end room in the SEC.
Yeah, man. I mean, I can't remember the other tight end's name, but he's really, really good, right? I mean, they do a great job scouting. These guys are older. Again, it's not an excuse, but I'll live, kind of with the death by 1,000 cuts, if you will, if you're, kind of dinking and dunking a bit to your tight ends, and if they're not getting popped over the top a ton. But that's something that they got to figure out, right? Georgia historically has had some pretty decent tight ends. And so that'll be something that they'll have to prepare for. When you put that on tape, that, teams are able to make those kind of plays. Other teams see that. So, that's what, something they'll try to exploit. And they just got to find a way to get a bit more assignment sound and make sure that, they're picking up their keys right. Make sure that, they're not allowing folks to cross their face. They're passing somebody off in the zone that shouldn't be. Any number of things can go into it. And that's the other tough part, Jeff, is, we can try to figure it out as best we can, but we don't know what's being called, right? Like that's a hindsight situation. And again, you're dealing with a younger group. So, there may be a situation when Tapp is on the field that he's able to communicate something from, back deep that he sees down to the linebackers. That's maybe not happening right now. I don't want to sit here and just pontificate too long on it, because it could really be any number of things, but obviously it's something they got to get cleaned up if they want to, continue to progress at the rate they want to.
Well, and I think to your point, the one play that stands out there is the touchdown Vanderbilt got right before the half, where they hit Stowers down the seam, and Filson, he missed the tackle at the 5-yard line. You could see Johnny Nansen kind of trying to get Ty Anthony Smith to move over. Mm-hmm. If Michael Taft is on the field or McDonald's on the field, they probably get word to Smith to Ty Anthony, scoot over. You're playing out of position, because if he's where he's supposed to be, he's got a chance to knock the ball down, tip it, whatever, or at least it makes it a tougher throw for Pavia than it was. But yeah, I just there's some stuff, Marcus, you just can't give a pass to, because it is what it is. But again, from a communication standpoint, we can't underestimate when you've got two guys that have been doing it for a long time, especially as long as Taft does, and they're not there, and now Derek Williams has to do it when he's still on the mend, coming off a really serious knee injury just a little over a year ago. It's a tough ask, but we haven't talked about the officials yet, and I want to. I try really hard not to be a let's point a finger at the officials type of guy after these games, but the one play where this game flipped is the touchdown, and the touchdown getting overturned was the right call. Yeah. But if they throw the flag, which should have been defensive holding, DPI, something, clearly there was a penalty there, but that play is not reviewable. Yeah. If Mosley's arm is free to complete the catch or the penalty is called, then you got a fresh set of downs. I think you're in the red zone at that point. You probably at least get a field goal and you run out the clock, and Vanderbilt's maybe, because there's 4 minutes left at that point. Right. So instead of a touchdown or a fresh set of downs, now you got a 51-yard field goal that misses. You give up the touchdown on the coverage bust the next play. We're talking about a completely different game. And I know you can't say, well, a team should rally back, that one play shouldn't bother. But Marcus, you've been in these games. Sometimes it's human nature to say, man, we shouldn't even be in this position. This game should be put away by now.
It's tough, man. You're right. I do my best to not ever really get into the official talk, right? But excuse me, lost my voice from yelling a little bit. They it's just been really bad, man. I mean, like, and what scares me, Jeff, is, as much as we talked about how cool it would be if all the conferences adopted, what the ACC is doing, well, stuff like today is the reason why the SEC won't. Yeah. Like, I can't imagine what those guys could have been talking about that could have made any sense for that call, for some of those calls to stand. And so it's egregious, man. I don't know. I'm sitting there watching, and I know a lot of times people are trying to call for a hold on every play, but I'm where my seats are, they're kind of on the 30 on, behind the visitor side on the south end of the stadium. And so I'm able to literally see behind as this play is unfolding. I can't remember who it was, but I mean, the lineman literally tackled him, wrapped both arms around him, took him to the ground right in front of the official. And it's just nothing, so it's just the 2-point conversion. We could go on and on and on, but you're right. You got to find a way to respond. The coaches would always tell us sudden change, but that's tough. You're right. You're absolutely right. As a player, you're sitting there looking around like, am I in a different universe right now? These are the things that we're coached, if we do X, or if you throw your hands up, when you're being held, and those kinds of things that, that's when you're going to get the call. And if you're not flopping to do it, you're not selling a call. It's literally what is happening those calls should be made. So I know, Sark said that he was going to be submitting, some calls this week, and I'll be curious to see, what the SEC response is on some of them, because it was really, really bad, man. I don't know what grouping this was, but they need to get permanently suspended like the other guy did too.
He's got a lot to pick from. Sark does. And the 2-point conversion, even listening to the explanation that the ABC crew got
from
the booth, they said that based on the positioning of the pylon cam, that it's not a definitive angle to where you can assume that he may have gotten it across. I'm like, you're making a lot of assumptions there on a pretty big call in this game. Like, you can't blame it. Yeah. It's either in or not. Like, you can't just assume. If we could do that, then we'd be here all day. We'd have 6-hour games with everything you could look over. So the explanation from the replay booth, Marcus, it made absolutely no sense to me. Like, you're assuming based on the angle of the pylon cam and where it's positioned that the ball didn't break the plane. It never broke the plane to me.
Yeah.
So
it never broke.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know what we're dealing with here. Yeah. But I think it's officiating in this league period. Like, I don't know where they finished, but there was about 6 minutes left in the Arkansas Mississippi State game, and I had to go to like the game tracker because I saw it pop up on the screen. I'm like, there's no way that's right. Arkansas at that point had 19 penalties for 173 yards, and there was still about 6 minutes left in the game.
Yeah, man.
Look, I'm not shedding a tear for Bobby Petrino at all, but man, I got a hard time believing that one team is going to commit 19 penalties in a game. Let's go ahead, Marcus. We want to thank our next sponsor here on the show. It's going to be our friends over at Von Lane, from Texas football Saturdays to the NFL Sundays and everything in between. Fall is always a stacked time in the ATX. And Von Lane is the smart way to get there. Forget the TSA lines or fighting that traffic on I-35. With Von Lane, you board in minutes at luxury hotel terminals. Then it's just 22 big first-class seats, each with Wi-Fi, outlets, and an onboard attendant bringing snacks, drinks, and even beer and cocktails. If you're so inclined, you'll arrive relaxed and ready for kickoff, the concert, or family time. And with booking open through December, you can lock in Thanksgiving and Christmas travel right now. Go to vonlane.com, use the code OTF25, that's OTF25, and save $20 on your first ride. Von Lane, elevated regional bus transportation. And I want to thank Von Lane also for being one of our sponsors for our game day coverage all across our shows here on the channel. It's been jam-packed today, and we want to thank Von Lane. Also, Flight by Yingling and Tito's Handmade Vodka for their sponsorship of On Texas Football and their support. C. Gaddis says 10-2 or most 9-3 scenarios gets us in the playoffs. 10-2, aside from the playoff, and somebody might be asking, well, Jeff, how can you say that? Look how Texas won games. But again, Marcus, I'm just watching everybody in the SEC. I'm watching Tennessee should be up a couple scores on OU now, and because of a fumble return for a touchdown, Oklahoma's very much in this game. Yeah. I don't see any just unbeatable dominant team in this conference. Texas is still very much alive for position in Atlanta. I have a hard time thinking 9-3 is going to make it in. But yeah, if you go 10-2, not only are you in Atlanta, but at that point, you're probably definitely in the college football playoff. But the bottom line, Marcus, is Texas has done enough in this stretch, this October, early November stretch, where you've been away from home, you come back home to play a top 10 team, you've won these games, and at least we can still talk about that. That's the good thing here.
Yeah, there's scenarios out there, right? And the best part about it, to be able to keep motivating the team, is a lot of it is in your control. If you just go out there and win, right? I mean, you run the table here, and that means you've what was Georgia? Georgia's 6 right now, 5 or 6.
5.
You run the table 5. You run the table, and that's 2 more wins against top 5 opponents. So everything's out there in front of them. Very first thing they got to do is take care of Georgia. So it's just one of those deals where right now for them, you got to fight and play every game like it's a playoff game, because really it is. Outside of that, you leave the your fate up to a whole bunch of other folks, and got to hope and wish for different things to happen. So. I'm not saying it, goes 10-2, right? Who knows? We still got to see, but game by game. And, originally we had a point in the season, right, where we openly talked, Jeff, about readjust your expectations.
Yep.
Well, now you can kind of believe a little bit again, right? I don't know what it's going to end up looking like, but I can at least tell myself a story again of how it can get there. Whereas before there was some despair that had started to set in, right? Like people were, it was, hey, let's not even say that word anymore. But it's possible, it's something that could happen if they handle business, and that's what it's going to take. And I think seeing, these progressions by Arch and the O-line, it's just there's stuff that's happening. The way Colin and Anthony Hill are playing, like there's stuff that's happening that says, okay, these are the elite traits that we needed to see, that this team has the ability to play up, to a level that originally, a lot of folks thought they could coming into the season.
Yeah, I mean, look, Marcus, I think back to your time as a player at Texas. Derek Johnson's at the head of this list, but you mentioned A. Hill and Colin. When you've got a guy that on a given snap can turn loose and can take over a game defensively, to have one guy like that is a luxury. But that's another reason why I'm not going to talk about Texas winning out is crazy talk, because you've got two box defenders that on a given down can be the most dominant defensive player in college football with those two guys.
Yeah. And then people continue to underestimate Ethan Burke. I mean, he has played huge these last couple of weeks. Every time Brad Spence is in there, I feel like he's making a play, so that's another guy that's going to be, earning more playing time. You still got a young guy in Lance Jackson that's coming along. I mean, they have a lot of pieces there to continue to work with. But to your point, I mean, you have two guys that are complete game wreckers. They are, and it's tough for an offensive coach, right? Because you can kind of scheme away from a guy, but how do you do it? When you got a guy at each level, and then sometimes you don't know where they're coming from. This is a bit more of what we were talking about earlier in the year, and it's maybe been a little less of just truly exotic looks, but more just they're performing at such a high level that it's hard to game plan around either of them. And when you have that going, that's when you really have something cooking on a defense.
I think the best thing I saw today, and I talked about it during the week, I was team take the ball first, and the decision was taken out of Sark's hands because Vanderbilt won the toss and deferred. Right. But I was of the opinion, Marcus, hey, in this game, you're back at home. You're coming off the momentum of the close at Mississippi State game. Take the ball first, be the aggressor, see if you can get Vanderbilt on their heels. And I said I would have been disappointed if we didn't see the most inspired, just ready to go from the jump version of Texas we've seen all year. That's the version we got. That's the version we got, because you look up within the first 4 minutes of this game, you've got a 75-yard touchdown on offense. You've got a Colin Simmons strip sack, and you're up 10-0. You couldn't ask for more than that.
Yeah, man. And look, I don't know if the TV copy caught it when we were coming out on the field. And, right after we did our little thing, they're ushering us off where the team is coming back on the field for the kickoff. And the guys on the kickoff team are like pointing at us, and they're all like pumping their arms and stuff. And we're doing it right back to them. And like everybody was jacked up, right? Like it was really good energy in there. And, the rain tried to kind of creep in a little bit. And so, there was a possibility that, maybe fans didn't show up, but they did, and they did in droves, and they were loud, and they were a part of that game, and that made a difference. So, they started fast, and I think that is, something, again, that, to your point earlier, Jeff, I think you have to give Sark credit for calling plays that were going to put his players in better positions. Look, a couple weeks ago, he came to the mic and made it clear, like, hey, I think, there are some things that I should have done that would have given them a better opportunity to, perform well or to execute better. I think he's doing a bit more of that now. He's trusting what he sees in front of him, as opposed to maybe, what he thought it could be coming into the season. And you just hope that can continue to grow.
I'll piggyback off what you just said. Seth makes a really good comment. Says perimeter blocking was better today. Still needs improvement, but it was better. To your point, Marcus, Sark needed to call his call. The game he called today, it needed to be like Michigan last year, Alabama 2 years ago. It needed to be that good for Texas to win. Right. And it was. And I love the fact that Arch was more on point. You can tell he's still not there completely, but he's getting more comfortable with those quick perimeter throws and the screens and the swing passes. But man, DeAndre Moore back healthy, now getting in a rhythm. Emmett Mosley's got his legs under him. Like your perimeter blocking was on point. And I love the adjustments Sark made too, going away from 12 personnel, utilizing more 11 personnel. They're split zone runs. Usually that's a tight end blocking back across the formation to seal that backside. That was DeAndre Moore on a lot of those plays. So 11 personnel, Sark made it work, but I love the adjustments, Marcus. And again, hats off to Sark for making the most out of his personnel and calling the kind of game he needed to call for Texas to win this game.
Yeah, look, if people are going to rip him, when plays aren't going the way you would like them to. You got to give them the credit when they are. And, as I've said, and again, I got to give Arch this credit as well. A lot of plays earlier in the season were schemed up just fine. Guys were wide open. Well, Arch is starting to hit those, right? Now, the next step is, going into an environment like Georgia against, a program that's had our number and had damn near everybody's number the last several years, right? And being able to do that on the road and what's probably going to be a night game. I can't imagine them not putting that prime time. I haven't looked at the schedule to see what other, teams are playing that day, but I know it's one of those, like kind of a couple different window kind of things where it could either be a 2:30 to 3:30 or between 5 and 7. I would imagine that you would want to see Arch Manning, playing at night on ABC or whatever. So, it'll be a raucous environment, but he's making the plays that he needs to make. And I think, again, to your point, starting the game, I want to say maybe the last 2 games they've started, with that quick screen out to Wingo. That's those layups that we're talking about. So maybe it's not the crosser. Maybe it's the, the little quick stuff or the dump offs that, make Arch feel a little more comfortable and help him get into the groove. But I mean, he was dialing it up today and Arch was executing everything that, he needed to execute. So hats off to him, man.
Jason makes a really good point. AJ Milwee being back up top makes a difference, Marcus. We talked about this during the watch with us. I think a couple of things about AJ. One, he's been an offensive coordinator at the FBS level, so he's called games from the press box. He's just got a natural feel for what it is up there. But also, he's been with Sark long enough now that I think he speaks Sark, so he may say things and relay it, but he can relay it in a way to help Sark know, hey, whether it's personnel or a formation or whatever, to let Sark know, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Call this. It makes the play calling process that much easier for Sark. It streamlines it a little bit. You'd wish they found that out earlier, but I'm glad they made the change because the last 2 weeks it's been really good for this offense.
Yeah, and it's funny, because of course like you just said, the the immediate question is, well, why didn't you do it sooner, right? But what has already happened or didn't happen is behind us at this point. And I think one of the things that we were talking about heading into the season was that this team would be better later. And one of the things I wanted to see was just kind of a constant, tick up. And so we had a couple of, dips, but these last couple of weeks or, certainly, the fourth quarter forward, from last week, you're starting to see some of that ascent. And I think the guys are starting to believe more in themselves. The more that they're going out there and playing and making some of these plays, it's a lot easier for, a Colin Simmons to look at a young guy like Lance Jackson and be like, look, man, I told you, right? Like you can do these things. And you're hearing that leadership. I even heard a bit of, one of the post-game availability where, Ant Hill was basically just saying like, hey, that starts with me. That's on me, as the, veteran of this defense, that breakdown begins with me. And so it's accountability in a way that, you want to see from your leaders, and it's really good to see it, even, after a win that, maybe should have had a little more margin in it.
Yeah, and I love that from Ant too, because look, I mean, let's face it, this is a guy that now you're down to the last 3 regular season games in all likelihood of his career. So this is a guy that's sensing it. Look, if I want a conference championship or get back to the playoff and maybe more, like there is no tomorrow for Anthony Hill. He'll be off making buku money next year in the NFL. This is it, Marcus. It's a different deal when you get to the end of the road and you can see, all your goals in sight and you get to this point of the year. That sense of urgency, it's hard to describe when guys sense it's at the end and you want to go compete for a championship. It's just a little bit different.
Yeah. We talked about it before too, Jeff, about playing with confidence, and you're seeing more of that from Arch. Even I saw a little clip of him like coming into the tunnel. He like turns around, he's like barking at the camera, right? Like he's getting some of his mojo back. And I think, whatever was going on up here, I think it's kind of proving out that it wasn't a talent thing. It wasn't, I don't remember what the stats are, but since he was the biggest flop ever in college football, he's gone on a tear, and of course that guy's not going to come back and admit he was wrong. But I also, love it when you see players and coaches across the country kind of piping up when they're asked about Arch, like, hey man, like I get y'all got, everybody has a job to do, but a lot of people are being way too hard on this kid. And, regardless of the name and anything else, I've really been impressed by the resilience that he's shown and his ability to kind of bounce back and just, shake it off. And he's starting to play his game. And I think Sark is calling plays that are more in line with his game. And I'll end it with this on Arch too, Jeff. I was really impressed by how smart he played today. On the touchdown to CJ Baxter last week, I think Arch tries to run that in.
Yeah.
This week, as he's stretching it out, you can kind of see for a moment. And I heard a couple people around me yelling like, "Run it, run it!" But it was, he saw enough, and he knew, hey, I don't need to be taking these hits right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's little things like that that I think make a difference. And I'm really happy for the young man.
Our Arch learned the same thing I tell my 7-year-old daughter, Marcus, just a little bit of patience.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of patience will go a long way. And look, that's a play. Saw VY make that play a ton. Saw Colt make that play a ton. When you've got an athletic quarterback, you get him on the move and you can roll a receiver that way and put that one defender in conflict. And he's got to make a choice. Do I come up and defend the quarterback run and risk getting it dropped over my head? Or do I stick with this receiver and risk the quarterback running it in? It's a no-win situation at that point. And I love Sark going down. I hope we see more of that in the red zone going forward, because trust me, in Athens, when you get scoring opportunities, you better cash in on them, because we know that Kirby Smart defense not going to give you very many of them.
No, they're not. And you're on the road and you're in a hostile environment, and the way these SEC refs are, I can't imagine them all of a sudden getting better in our favor, but they've been, pretty bad all around, but they seem to like old Kirby a good bit. So, that you really have to come in there and make any and every opportunity count. So, but it was just something I saw that I was like, that's another sign of some growth. The week prior for me, it was throwing the ball out of the back of the end zone when something wasn't there and living for another down. This week, it's, choosing to protect yourself and finding another way to score versus, taking an extra beating.
Yeah, I think Johnny Jackson mentioned it up here, said Kirby Smart blackmailed the refs. You look at Georgia's season, Marcus, and I watched that Florida game, and there were 2 calls. There was a fumble that got overturned right before the half, where instead of it being a 10-7 Florida lead and they get the ball with a few seconds left, Georgia maintains possession and gets a field goal. And there was a pass late down the field where I swore like the guy's sliding and catches it, like you can see it resting on his forearm. And they uphold it as an incomplete pass. If Georgia's got 9 lines, they've got to be getting close to running out of them, because I don't know, man. They have dodged some big time bullets in SEC play. But Marcus, that goes back to like I just don't see a team in the SEC that when I look at Texas, I'm like, yeah, Texas can't beat that team. Like, everybody in the SEC's got flaws.
Yeah, absolutely. And even expanding outside the SEC, outside of Ohio State, which, if it got to it, I wouldn't be upset with what our matchup could potentially look like against them. There really hasn't been any other dominant teams. I hear you, in your Indiana and A&M to a degree, but they look beatable still. And so, but of course, you got to handle, what's around you, and that's the SEC. And I mean, you're right. Anybody is, up for grabs on any given Saturday. You got to roll it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, Sam M, and this goes back to our conversation about the official. Sam M says, also, our O-line is so dumb at inopportune moments. Unbelievable. I thought Arch really grew up today. Wide receivers did great. I mean, the false start on Brandon Baker there in the fourth quarter, at first I thought he did jump, but then they show the replay. I'm like, he never really moved. I don't know why you would have called that. The second one that Sark was rightfully hot about it. Like Vanderbilt moving toward the line of scrimmage, which I thought that was a penalty. Now that they're going to be enforce that a little bit more. But yeah, it's just one of those deals where, the officiating is going to be what it's going to be. Again, I go back to that sequence. If Mosley's able to finish the catch or the penalty's called, we're not even talking about the last 4 minutes being an issue. Wow. It's probably a 41-16 win for Texas, and everybody's enjoying Halloween weekend downtown, Marcus.
That's when my I get back on my grassy knoll and I'm like, all right, who made the call? And oh, by the way, the line ended up closing at 3.5. So
yeah,
somehow Vegas knows, but yeah, SEC refs aren't doing themselves any favors. When they were running off the field, crowd was booing them, and rightfully so.
Buddy Powell, Chief Big Guy, and Shane Lawler also mentioned Wisner is a beast. That heart that he plays with. When you talk about the run game too, and this bleeds into Arch, and Arch getting a better feel for the screen game and the quick game and the perimeter throws. Marcus, those are the two, the screen to Niblet and the one to Wisner in the first half. those are the most cleanly executed running back screens I've seen from a Sark offense, maybe since you were throwing them to Jonathan Brooks. Like those were so clean, especially the Niblet one where you had so much mesh point manipulation that I don't know that I've seen a screen in an SEC game where you've got 3 linemen. It looked like they're setting up like a left punt return. Yeah. Like you got the wall set up.
Which he's great at, right? And you make it perfect. Now we're not just using them on a speed sweep, right? It's this guy has been sacrificial to the point of moving around to different positions and showing up big time on special teams. Well, now let's find a way to get him the ball in space and do it creatively where it makes sense. Right. And I mean, you're right. And he's dialing them up at the perfect time. The timing of the screens are being called well, but the way in which our running backs are executing them is perfect. And this goes back to the thing in which we were talking earlier about, things that can help Arch. Having guys that are experienced like that, where the one that's subbing out can give you kind of that same type of energy and confidence as the one that's subbing in. Like it's beautiful. And, Buddy Powell, Chief Big Guy, he said it perfectly. Like that blitz pick up was perfect. And those are the type of things where as a quarterback, the more that happens, hey, I don't have to worry about keeping my head on the swivel as much. I can count on my guy. My brother to my side is going to do his job, and I can keep my eyes downfield to figure out where this ball needs to be delivered. There were times earlier in the season where you didn't have them on the field or they weren't as healthy, and you saw a little bit more of the leakage that when, things got through, it was either solely on Arch or he was getting hit. And so you're starting to see that he's taking less hits, and that's showing a result on the field. And that's nothing but, the players executing and the coaches putting them in good positions to do that.
No doubt. Kobe Lloyd with a good take right here said the bye week cannot have come at a better time. Hopefully we're healthy for UGA. If we play our A+ game, it's not even close in my opinion, respect to UGA, but they can be beaten. Getting healthy during the bye week is critical. Ryan Wingo did mess up his thumb, and it's a shame because, the 2 balls he caught, he was moving, especially that 75-yard touchdown. Caught it on a stiff arm. You can see his thumb kind of jammed up a little bit. Sark did say in an emergency situation he could have gone back into the game. So hopefully it's not anything serious. Talking to CJ Vogel after the game, CJ was down in the bowels of DKR there in the press room. Said it doesn't sound like a serious injury for Jelani McDonald. We saw Day-Day McCutcheon come back in after. I couldn't tell if it was a forearm or a stinger or what, but his left arm was hanging, but he did come back into the game. So we were, Jerry and I talked about it on the tailgate show, Marcus. Look, well, so-and-so's not 100%. So look, you're halfway through an SEC schedule. Yeah. Nobody on any of these teams is 100% if you're playing a lot of snaps.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's we talked about it with Pavia coming in, like you're banged up. This is the part of the season where stuff starts hurting. If I remember correctly, man, like I didn't get 2 buys. So these guys are really lucky they get an opportunity, to kind of recoup at this point. And it's the perfect timing of it. It's another phase of the season. And now it's big game with Georgia, get back home, and then you got A&M. And so it comes at, the perfect time. I think for me, the ability to potentially get Taft back is so huge. Yeah. And we're not going to hear a lot this week. So, people are going to be asking all week, but Sark doesn't have to go and give an availability report this week. So, I wouldn't expect to hear much until about 10 days from now or whatever that Wednesday before Georgia is. But I think, there's a strong opportunity that we can get a lot of guys back healthy. And, it just whoever said that, they nailed it. Couldn't come at a better time.
Yeah. Exactly. And, Taft was on the injury report up until I think he was listed as doubtful last night, tried to go, but I would expect, I would think it's going to have he might go the Ronnie Lott route or maybe just cut it off if he can't be on the field against Georgia. But, Michael Taft wants to be out there. Let's go ahead and thank our last sponsor here on this special live edition of On Texas Football. And Marcus, I don't know if you saw one or both of these guys today, but let's hear from a couple of lifetime Longhorns from our friends over at Advanced Pain Care.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
People forget Marcus Colt was on that national championship team. I don't know if he was shaven by that point, but he was a redshirt on that team.
Yeah, man, he had a chance to learn from a guy that was pretty decent, and then went on to do what he did. So that's the cool thing about some of this stuff is when you kind of look back at it. And I saw him doing some stuff with Coach Brown on their podcast earlier in the week, and you just talk about a lot of the stuff, or he talked a lot about the stuff that he took from that season. And it's really cool when you hear stories like that, because he goes on to have one of the more prolific careers ever, and he's talking about the way in which he even got to Texas, and then the things he learned in the season where he had to sit. So
I say it all the time, Colt's career was never supposed to happen. That it was supposed to go from VY, so we're going to be Ryan Paralou's team next. And at the end, he did end up helping LSU win a national championship, but I think Texas ended up getting the good end of the deal on that. E. Kim, find a way to win the next game, no matter how ugly. Ugly wins are more important than pretty wins. Hey, Coach Royal said it, man. Old ugly's better than old nothing. So that's the way some of these have been. But Marcus, Sandman mentions Ethan Burke.
Yep.
I don't want it to get lost in the last 4 minutes where the defense gave up some yards and Vanderbilt got back in the game. But we talk about being healthy. We talk about what it takes to win in the SEC. I like this matchup for Texas, and one of the reasons why I liked it, the depth Texas has on the defensive line. Even if you're facing a lot of plays, when it comes down to crunch time, you can still put relatively fresh bodies in the game to rush the passer. And we talk about it with Burke and Zeno Mozolo was on the field. You can have Trey Moore in there, Simmons, just go down the list. I mean, you've got quality rushers you can have on the field at all times. Yeah,
and they're getting live reps in important games, right? So, again, last week, or I can't remember now, was it? Yeah, not Ethan Burke, Lance Jackson. He's on the play for the last play as it's getting closed out. Those are things that help you cut your teeth, but then it's like, okay, this is what this feels like, and you can keep on doing it, and then it's contagious. I saw my brother get a sack. I saw my brother get a TFL. I need to go get one myself now, and that's how these guys, feel. That's how they're wired. You can tell that they, take that craft to heart, and it's really cool because then, I mean, if I'm a recruit and I'm one of the top edge players in the country, I'm seeing, play after play, week after week, and now year after year, that you can come to Austin to do that really well. So they're putting a good stamp on things out there.
And, the interior D-line, they didn't fill out the box score today. But, man, Alex January, Hero Canoe, Cole Brevard, saw Travis Shawn there. That group did the dirty work today, Marcus. They were occupying bodies so the guys around them could move around. And get stuff done. Man, you look at Vanderbilt, other than the 25-yard touchdown run by Pavia, they got nothing going in the run game today. I mean, they finished 24 carries for 58 yards, but Cedric Alexander, 5 carries for 11 yards. Young had 4 carries, 7 yards. Absolutely nothing. And again, that's a Vanderbilt program that prides itself on being able to run the football, being tough at the line of scrimmage. The Texas own the line of scrimmage today. If you can own the line of scrimmage in an SEC game, college football's ultimate line of scrimmage league, you're going to give yourself a chance every week.
Yeah, and we talked about that, right? They rushed for 136 yards last week, but 80 of it came on one play. And so, Jerry and I were, trying to really make the point that if you can, limit, their running backs, you have a really good shot. And they did just that. It was a bittersweet thing for me. I know Cedric Alexander's mom. And so, know a number of folks from his family. And so I was sitting behind some folks that were, some Vandy fans, and I just told them, I said, hey, y'all can cheer. I know a guy over there too. I just don't want him to score, and as it turns out, he didn't give a ton of yardage. So they did an amazing job, man. And that's one of those things that I do credit these, PK defenses a lot, is he will find the thing that if they can shut it down, it makes the rest of everything really hard for you. And, kudos to Pavia for stepping up, making some plays. But, for me at that point, the game was in hand. I get it. It wasn't pretty, but man, we're 7-2. And there's a lot of people that didn't think that was possible. And, there was points in the season where, I even kind of began to question, like, what is this really going to end up looking like? I get the thought of, ugly wins and this, that, and the third, but I promise you, man, the more this season plays out, I'll take 7-2. I don't care what the 7-2 looks like. And I think I even I don't know if it was a commentator or a tweet or something, but somebody was saying something to the effect of how bad to this was. I'm not sure what is Miami 7-2 now.
Yeah.
7-2. I'll take our 7-2 over Miami 7-2. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the games didn't look pretty, but we lost the game to Florida that I still believe if Manny was healthy, that probably doesn't go that way. But we got beat up, right? Just physically punished. So at the end of the day, that's L. And you lost to the number one team in the country. I'm okay with that, and I don't care what these last couple of weeks look like. I don't care what, the fourth quarter looked like today in the grand scheme of things. You have to go out there and clean it up and improve. And, certainly don't want that to happen again. But it won the damn game, man. So we're on bye week, and that's all you could ask for.
Marcus, as we wrap it up, I'll ask you this. People talk about culture wins, talk about Kentucky being a culture win, Mississippi State being a culture win. How much character do you think Texas has built during this run of games? It started with Florida, then Oklahoma, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and now Vandy. How much character has been built with this team going into the bye week before this last run of 3 games?
A ton. I mean, what can you tell these guys that they can't do now, right? And again, I think that's the best part from the coaching standpoint is they can literally just tell them, see, we can win different ways. See, different guys can be huge catalysts in every game, right? Like Niblett didn't have a huge impact with the ball in his hands, but he made them think about how they were going to kick it to him differently. Like he got in on offense and made, some big plays. So it's not always the same person the same way. And then that's the little carrot that you can always dangle is you tell the guys, now what happens if we put a full 4 quarters together, right? A full 4 quarters together, like the sky is the limit because you see glimpses of it. And, for 3.5 quarters, looked like, you were going on to make a huge statement win. And to me, it's still a huge statement win. It just, the margin ended up being not what it, could have been. But that's the beauty of this is that even though that, that the first 3.5 was probably, the best handful of quarters that they've played, they didn't finish it out in a way to be able to say that this was the best game they could play. And that's what you kind of want. This team has not peaked yet.
Nope.
And I think that is the thing that is very exciting for me is that you're going to look up and this thing is going to fully click. And then we'll have a little bit better understanding of, why the talent is what it is and why people, heap some of the praise on them before they had really earned it. They're starting to earn it now.
I was going to add on to that, Marcus, but that's beautiful. I'm going to just leave it there because that's where I was going to go. This team hasn't peaked yet. And as long as that performance is still out there, they still got something to work towards. 7-2 at the bye week. Silver Spurs Sicko, O-line should travel to Athens, right? Yeah, I'll say this, for today, for one day at least, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but the combination of Robertson at center, Hudson at left guard, it worked. They found something today. And again, Marcus, this team, it's not going to be a team that just suddenly starts looking like, the 04 offense where you can count on 300 yards rushing a game or whatever. But, hey, right at 100 yards on the nose, you were plus, 42 in rush yards at the end of the day. Just be efficient. The screen game will be an extension of the run game. They did their job today. The offensive line did its job today, period.
And I'll add this real quick, too. When you hold up in pass blocking like that, and Arch is now able to put up the numbers he's put in back-to-back games, opposing defensive coaches now have to pay a bit more attention to that offensive game. There was a period in the year where you kind of felt like, man, we can just go out there and do whatever because even if he's open, he's not going to make the pass, right? You can't think that anymore about this Texas offense. And so that begins to, make some of these chunk runs at the right times come just a bit easier. And so I'm really, happy with what we're seeing and it is that complementary football. It as one, portion of the offense picks up, the other one is able to start to come along. So it'll be a good one in a couple of weeks in Athens.
Regarding Arch, I'll leave it with this. All the great ones we've seen at Texas, VY, Colt, I'll throw Sam in there, even Quinn. There were times early, we can look at the end in the body of work and think, oh, those guys never struggled. No, there were times where those guys were up against it. But once it clicked, once they started to build momentum, it didn't stop and we got something really, really special with all of those guys. I don't know if this is the start of it for Arch right now, but he's making steps in the right direction. Again, first back-to-back 300-yard games in his career. Now let's see if he could just keep stacking performances on top of each other. Marcus, thank you for the time. I know you had a great time with your 2005 teammates today during the celebration. So always, everybody, Longhorn Nation always feels good when that team gets back together and can get recognized. So 20 years since that national championship.
Hey, and it was Coach Shipley's 65th birthday. So when he told us that the other night, I was like, oh, we're winning. We got the team there. We got Coach's birthday. It's all good. So I need to shoot him a text right quick. But hey, yeah, man, it was great.
And nobody should feel bad for Coach working on his birthday. He said the big party's tomorrow. So they got the big party out in Abilene tomorrow. So they'll get taken care of. Marcus, thanks for the time. As always, the knowledge and the expertise is awesome. It's outstanding. Thank you to Bobby behind the scenes for producing it. And hey, thank you to Matt Hutchison for his hard work all day. We've been at it on the channel. Everybody behind the scenes doing a great job. Thank you to our sponsors for this special live edition. We got Advanced Pain Care, Duck Camp, and Von Lane. And also want to thank our game day coverage sponsors here at On Texas Football. That being Von Lane, Tito's Handmade Vodka, and Flight by Yingling for making it happen. Plenty of content to come tomorrow on the channel and over at OnTexasFootball.com. If you're not a member over at OnTexasFootball.com, you can get over to the site right now and sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access at OnTexasFootball.com for $39.95. Make sure you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, you're not missing any of our game day coverage. Everybody, thank you so much for getting in the live streams, participating in the chats and in the super chats. Enjoy the rest of your night. It'll be a victory Sunday when you wake up tomorrow. Once again, the final score, Texas 34, Vanderbilt 31, and the Longhorns are 7-2 with everything still in front of them heading into the bye week. For Marcus, for Matthew, for Bobby, for the entire On Texas football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, welcome.